Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Shaping Africa podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have Phiny on the show. Phiny is a returnee from the diaspora, and today we'll get into his journey, to the US, living in the US and back to Kenya. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So how did you end up in the US?
Just like everyone else, after high school, 1999. And family just happened to be in the Bay, so you just get a visa, hit or miss, you're lucky, and you get it and you just go.
And what did you study?
Honestly, I think initially, because we finished high school in 97, so it was just going, it was just a thing of like, you need to get out of here,
right.
And see what you need to do. And a lot of family was there and just kind of ended up going to the Bay.
I see.
And back in the days, I think there's no formula. It's just how do you get out?
Right.
And then when you just go there, life just, you don't know what to expect. You just kind of pick it from there. Yeah.
And so what was the experience broadly like living in the US?
The experience, so many experiences. So I lived there for about 20 years.
Wow.
But from 99 to 2010, how many years is that?
You're testing my math.
A couple of years.
11?
Really? No.
Yeah.
Kind of feels like maybe 15.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess going back then, everyone took probably like 5-10 years to come back home. So
right.
The first thing you do, you're instantly like just disconnected with everyone. So there's no Facebook, there's only emails probably a little bit later towards 2000. Mm-hmm. So what you miss the most is you lose everyone. So when you go there now, it's just you're building up on friendships, new culture, which is obviously like a big culture shock, and then and then just I think things just start changing as life went by. But I think the first 10 years you forget all your friends, you lose everyone you have around you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially family, I think, So when you're thinking of emails and no one's really on emails until maybe when did the .com thing start?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I distinctly remember when I went to the US.
When did you go?
I went, I think, in 2001.
Okay.
And I was purely on AOL.
Yeah.
And like another
Hotmail.
thing called Mashada. We used to log on to look for our friends.
Yeah.
And then Yahoo.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I can't remember if it had a chat function.
Yeah.
But it was definitely like a chore to keep in touch.
Yeah, exactly.
The world wasn't, I guess, as connected.
Yeah, and then I guess those first years before you figure out your papers or how to move back home, you're almost like kind of stuck. So I think that's like the one thing that really no one prepares you that for. You're almost just going to be somewhere and you're missing out on family and all those things.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I guess around early 2000s, maybe you come home, maybe 2000 and I think the first time I came home was probably 2006, and a whole different thing, friends, things have changed, who you've become and things like that. So but I think the first couple of years when you're coming back, you're just hanging out, seeing how it is. Obviously it's just a month, so you're just in the club and just enjoying the sweetness, of being back home. Yeah. So when you came back, like what was surprising for you? Like even if it was just to visit, what was like, or what were the high points, low points of that initial visit after being gone for so long? I think as you're coming back, people start changing. So first couple of years I'm buying you drinks. First couple of years I'm the coolest guy, just things like that. And then as time goes by, then these guys are catching up, Everyone back home is like kind of catching up. So you realize, okay, when probably came, this guy didn't have a car, where they probably lived, and where they're living at home. And then eventually, realize, okay, these guys have big cars, these guys are living well. So you kind of start realizing their way of living is becoming a little bit better than you, obviously considering home is a lot better than, abroad. In a way, socially and way of living and things like that. You can have a driver here, you have a house help and things like that. So as you're coming more, then you're kind of now envying being here more,
Right,
so yeah.
Right. And so when did you decide to come back?
When
Now
did I
that you
decide-
you
I'm
had
giving
seen
you
that
breaks
soft
to keep
life,
So I think around 2011, 2010-11 when I came. So I was doing real estate. That was my background in the States. That's kind of what I got into. And when you start looking back home, you know, things are coming up. Good houses. The real estate market is going up, and in the US the market is just dipping and dipping. You know, so I figured like I saw an opportunity that probably could work. And yeah, so eventually I think I came back in 2011. Then I do a couple of months.
Okay.
Then I live here for a couple of months, 6 months, 8 months.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. And during that time, you were kind of dabbling in real estate on both sides, or?
Yeah. So yeah, but the thing is, the market is obviously a lot different. So everything takes too long. And at that time, you know, a lot of things are not, they're not like kind of joined together. So the process is so long. You know, if it's buying back in 2010-11, you're thinking 6 months. I think titles. Is it title? What are they called? Titles or logbook?
Yeah, titles.
Yeah. So they take probably about. Everything takes just too long here. Yeah. And then also it was quite expensive. You know. Around that time, there's no Uber, there's no Airbnbs. So if you're trying to balance your life out, you're thinking, okay, if you need a car here, then you're probably spending 3,000 a day, which is probably about 70,000 a month on a very basic car, and you need to move around. Or taxes maybe about 3,000 then. So it was actually a little bit hard to stay here for that. That's probably why we kept going back and forth. Just because of that was a little bit expensive. Then, yeah. But family, I think what kind of kept leaning more towards the side is just, you know, family's home. Yeah, and you're kind of enjoying the basic. You know, I think when you live outside for so long, you really lose out on family. That's probably what everyone loses out the most on.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And so how was it like reintegrating into family, you know? Because I know that can be an interesting dynamic as well.
Integrating into family.
Yeah.
I think it's good because it's just basic, you know, you're able to go home, eat food at home, you know, you're kind of just revisiting your childhood, you know. And, you know, on top of that, you realize, you know, your parents are growing old, you know, your siblings are growing up. And yeah, as they're growing older, then things are not, that's kind of drawing apart for them. Everyone, you know, people are losing family members and things like that. Yeah, so you kind of enjoy that. And a lot of people, I think, when they live in Kenya for too long, no one wants to move around that much, you know. So you realize people who've been in Kenya until past their 30s, they don't really enjoy living abroad or visiting abroad for long periods of time, you know. So yeah, so I think for me, the longer I stayed here, then family just probably became the core thing. That's what was fun, just going home, you know, just moving around, going for function and things like that. Yeah, which is something you had missed out on for quite a while. For a long time, I mean, thinking about weddings and just any event, you know, you hardly have any of those for years, you know. You probably look at your time abroad, you probably attended less than 5. By the time you come back here, because now that's what we're now mid-30s, so by the time you're coming back, everyone is married, you know. So you realize you missed out on all that. Yeah. And did you have any challenges in the transition? I mean, obviously we've talked about like kind of establishing yourself in business, and then at the time moving around. What are the challenges? What are the challenges? The challenges is obviously when you live abroad, you really have a soft life. Things are very, there's a system, so you kind of get so used to that system, whether it's just basics as just people keeping time, people showing up, and just the relationships, so those are probably the main challenges, because when you come back, you have those expectations where you're thinking like, you know, I've lived abroad for so long, I have this experience. I'm meeting someone who's looking at it like, who cares if you went abroad, you know, where are you even back here? And they feel like maybe they earned it more by just being here. and for you probably life was a lot easier, and now you're here coming with, you're coming with all those expectations. Yeah. And ideas, and the ideas, because I mean, here you get there's a lot of you see a lot of opportunities, but I think the main problem is just executing them, and initially you just think people are not seeing that, but everyone sees that. It's just the execution is a lot different.
Yeah. Totally. Okay. And so with time, did you settle into your real estate business, or like what happened?
I mean, so with time, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. So so that's what I wanted to do first, but I started with production. So when I came, we figured out we can get a lot of equipment, and back then no one had like the red cameras, no one had all this equipment. So I had a friend of mine called Masharia who also just moved back a little bit younger. That's what he did. So we figured we could just start up a production company. Maybe this is probably 2014. Yeah, and there's just this thing, I think, when you live abroad where people are looking at you like you have to know what you're doing, and you obviously can do it well, and you're keeping time, you're following up well, you're humble and things like that. So I think those years we probably did the most, like a lot of production that was being done there was just us, and it's just two guys with really nothing, just selling a dream. I'd never really done that, but Masharia was obviously pretty good as a director. So we started a trend, in terms of some TVCs, the videos, music videos, and what I'd do, I'd produce that. So what I'd do is, I think we'd reach out to like Trace, MTV. So we figured a system where we'll pay to get your video played on these platforms. So we opened up something, I think that probably had never been done here, just kind of based off those relationships. And I think we did everyone's video for like 2 years. It was a good run for 2 years, Then I think the locals now, the NSS, the Boscos, probably figure like, man, I don't need to be doing photos, and I can step up to this, maybe reduce my price and things like that. So things just change, and I think that's the thing about Kenya. It's like you have to just keep rolling. There's different things you just kind of have to evolve and just keep doing different things.
Totally, I think that people underestimate the rate of change here.
Exactly.
And I think for you guys it was like as short as 2 years, and it was like, okay, now already thinking about the next thing.
You're thinking about the next thing, and you've done a lot. I mean, like just thinking, and that's from here to TZ to UG. All of a sudden everyone is hitting you up, because they've seen, oh, you guys did the South Soul video, you guys did the Jago video, you guys did this and that. So everyone's like, your demand is high, and then I think with this place it's only a matter of time. It's a very cut and copy paste type of system. So eventually people start doing it, the price changes, and then you kind of have to move to something else.
Right. And if you don't mind me asking, what did you move to next?
How many things have I done? I don't know. I think where I am right now, it's still like a building phase. Relationships here take time, and so Kenya, you kind of realize, and that's why even now when you look at politics and things like that, these guys are the average. These guys are probably all in their 60s. The country is run by people in that age bracket. So even us being early 40s, I think I'm 43 this year, I don't know, but you kind of you're still young in the system. You're still very young in the system, and a lot of places you go, guys are not trying to give up. You'll quit as someone who's in their 70s and they still feel like, hey, I'm the one who still needs to be doing this and that.
Right.
And so it's kind of almost like a wait and play or whatever. And so during that period, whoever lasts the longest, then you're the one who's going to probably stay relevant. There's opportunities going to kind of come, but there's too many times here people I think are looking at, okay, now let me hit a gold mine, and make this much, and I'm like kind of good. It's always like a big story, so almost everywhere you're talking about, no one wants to build, so every story is just always about, let me make 300 million. Let me do this. No one's trying to build.
For the next deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Quote.
The next big deal. Yeah.
That's actually a really important lesson.
Yeah.
The fact that you have to have a lot of staying power.
Yeah.
In a long-term view.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when you transition, it's not like you come in and you're gonna make it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.